Our next speaker is Dr. Claudia Schwarz, an Austrian senior postdoctoral researcher with a background in sociology, media studies, science and technology studies, and ethics. Her work explores the intersection of mental well-being and society. While visiting Harvard and MIT with an European Union-funded Marie Curie Fellowship, she has become an expert on the resurgence of psychedelic movements in the United States. Claudia recently published a special issue on critical psychedelic studies together with Christine Hauskeller. Both are co-organizers of this event. She also fosters classroom belonging through extended reality in the Augmented Social Play project and started the Me Too STS, We.STS hashtags movement, inspired by her own experiences with harassment and abuse of power at Harvard. Claudia, welcome, please.
It might appear that there are dark times, at least that came up for me when thinking about the context we are currently in. And context here is also for me starts in this very room, in this very house here, the Schwarz Hall, it's called, and it also had to think, of course, of my own last name, Schwarz, in German, the name for the color black, my father's name. And this also brought up that even out of the darkest things and times and out of dark consciousness, dreams may arise in our culture that are very hopeful. And in my translational work, I'm also doing here, I think of dream, I think of Traum in German. And I had to think of, in this hall here, in this room, the Reverend Brown room, the holy room, and I had to think of Dr. Martin Luther King, of course, not least because we also have a Dr. Franklin King amongst us here, our local psychiatrist, always good to have. And coming from Austria, Vienna, I had another association that came up for me, the father of psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud, who taught us that dreams are the royal road to the unconscious. And yeah, this is what I'm talking about to you today, about dreams, and in particular of psychedelic dreamscapes, of what I understand as the collective cognitive material infrastructure that we see emerging, that is building and maintaining dreams of another world with psychedelics. For many, this should be a better world than the darker world we may still inhabit at this moment now. I also draw on work from this scholarship from Sheila Chazanoff here at Harvard, who has this concept of socio-technical imaginaries to describe collectively held and performed visions of desirable futures, as well as resistance against the undesirable, attainable through and supportive of advances in science and technology. But I also, at the same time, critique this understanding of imaginaries as being too narrow, especially coming from a psychedelic perspective. Yeah, we shouldn't just focus on science and technology in the modern sense, but as we just heard in the previous presentation, well, psychedelics are also going way back, and we should resist reifying the dominance of colonialist science and technology, even at places like this here. And I write about this in in a publication on social psychedelic imaginaries, which is this concept I developed to describe the collective visions articulated and enacted to reintegrate psychedelics legally and responsibly into society to move us beyond the current prohibitionist reality. With this concept in mind, I was able to analyze and describe four main social psychedelic imaginaries, the dreamscape of social psychedelic imaginaries we currently live in the United States. We know it quite well, the biomedicalization imaginary. We heard a lot about it yesterday in amazing talks. We also know about the decriminalization imaginary that emerged in the US through grassroots initiatives and has really taken over almost the whole country, although it didn't really sprout in this region here in Massachusetts recently. And also the legalization imaginary, which is an alternative or in between the biomedical and the decriminalization by trying to provide psychedelic therapies not through the medical system but through an alternative state system also for non-patients. And finally, the sacramental imaginary, the imaginary of religious use that is, of course, particularly important here in the Divinity School, Vicinity we are in now, which is about especially churches and how they use plants and fungi and other natural and also sometimes not natural, whatever that may be, sacraments to really encounter the divine. These are the dreams, Traum, as I said in German, my mother tongue. And it's also very connected with trauma, also very close, these words. As a German speaker, you cannot really kind of think them not together. And we see also in the psychedelic dreamscape that these two words are very close. And the trauma is also pointing straight ahead at this shadow behind this psychedelic figure walking into the light. Because, yeah, the trauma points toward a dreamscape that's also in need of shadow work, because we all have our shadows, yeah, behind us or below us or beyond us, who knows. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this concept, this archetypal figure that the father of analytical psychology, C.G. Jung, coined to describe all these repressed and hidden parts of ourselves that we tend to push out of our conscious awareness because it's conflicting with our self-image or what we learned from society. And in order to kind of deal with that, we as Jung pointed us towards we need to do shadow work, not just, as we heard yesterday, boundary work and all of that, but shadow work. So to really explore and integrate the shadow and come into a more whole and integral state in our psyche. And I cannot not speak of this work and also speak of Stan Grof, the father of transpersonal psychology, who also has a even bigger model of consciousness. We had Freud, we had Jung, we have now Grof, all have their different ever enlarging, expanding models and understandings of consciousness and the psyche. And Stan Grof is, of course, particularly important also for the psychedelic community and field, because he started out as this pioneering LSD researcher. And then when that wasn't possible anymore, he turned to develop holotropic breathwork as another way to kind of tap into these deeper layers of consciousness and also the collective dimensions. And I also want to mention at this point that what we did last weekend here on the holy grounds of the Harvard Divinity School, just there, over the street at the Center for the Study of World Religions. The amazing colleagues there helped us organize a holotropic breathwork workshop with the Dreamshadow group. I don't own this trademark, it's their trademark, but I just use Dreamshadow as this bigger concept. You also see on these pictures our amazing facilitators. Two of them are also co-organizers of this very conference. I was there as a participant and had a great process, also very somatic, released a lot of unconscious material. Great time for me this is the best you can do. So really engage in this shadow work and go deep with amazing, trustworthy colleagues here at the Harvard grounds. I think we are breaking new ground here by doing that simultaneously. Also thanks to Christine, who helped organize this event, who is a fellow at the Divinity School at the moment. And yes, so my call is to engage with the dream shadows of the psychedelic revival in our different ways. And with this, I refer to really to look at the hidden tensions, conflicts, and divisions in the revival that we are experiencing, and to move from the individual, of course, to the social cultural, because that's where humanities and social scientists come in. What we are doing is to explore and integrate the often disowned and neglected parts of our culture, and in my case, of these social psychedelic imaginaries, and to really look into the often unconscious dynamics that are at play in and between these imaginaries, to bring that up and integrate that into our consciousness. The dream shadows of the psychedelic revival there's many, and Fernanda already mentioned colonialism and these important ones. I just put some here on this slide. I'm not going so much, I don't have the time to go into detail here, but let me just point out from my own perspective three that matter a lot to me: sexism, ableism, classism, all these systemic injustices that are shaping and creating trauma and are inhibiting the dreams of us, of those who are affected by these injustices. So in order to really ensure that everyone can dream, we need to address these isms. It's these isms, I also want to just mention, because we talked about it yesterday, the FDA decision that we had, and I'd like to see it or welcome it also, this whole process of regulatory decision-making as a revelatory process. That is also revealing to us the biomedical dream shadow, as we heard yesterday in several presentations. Eduardo, Christine talked about it, Catherine. We can learn in this process a lot about the blind spots of biomedicine as a whole, and that's where we come in, and our work is very needed, I would say. And we are just starting this work, so this is very important to go on. So if some people now ask, is the psychedelic revival shipwrecked? Is it already sunk? I think it's the wrong question. First, it's not one ship. As I'm trying to say, every imaginary is basically its own ship on this ocean of consciousness of the psychedelic revival, and it's not sunk at all. Speaking from my personal perspective again, because this is what I like to do, to say, yeah, I'm here, I'm a human being, I have my struggles. I'm not just in the ivory tower up somewhere. And I can only speak for myself. Of course, I was also devastated by the FDA decision. And I myself have invested quite some hopes. I bought into the dream of MDMA assisted therapy, of psychedelic therapies, because I had a trauma. I hope maybe I still have it. I'm quite sure I still have it in some ways. So my interest in the topic also, like for many, came up because of my own personal suffering. And so I really wanted to believe, I wanted to believe in this better world with psychedelic healing, especially for me personally. But I don't believe in the way these dreams are sold to us at the moment by certain figures anymore. I don't think there's this promised land waiting for us in 2070. And I'm a bit skeptical of everyone appearing in full white clothing in general, because blind spot shadows, if there's not a little darkness in it, I don't really believe it. The Traum A, there's also a Traum B. If there is a Traum A, there's another dream. Is you see these these dreams also in the sacramental imaginary. Here, an image from the Santo Daime Ayahuasca Church. Where you also have this vision, this egalitarian vision, but then, as we also hear now from cases of sexual abuse in these communities, it's also encountering, or it's living in a patriarchal, sexist reality that is, I would say, threatening to shadow this dream that is created. And we also see it in the biomedical imaginary with the uncovering of similar ethical violations that that happen in studies, in therapeutic relationships. It's human stuff. It happens, the difference is always, how do we deal with it, right? Do we sweep it under the rug, or do we discuss it openly and deal with the darkness that's in us and in our culture and in human beings? And I think it's certainly important to reveal the skeletons that are in the cellars of our psychedelic dream homes. This is a nod to Christine Hauskeller for the insiders. Now for the German speakers, Hauskeller in German means cellar of the house. There's the skeletons usually. I think it's important work to bring them to light, but I also want to be mindful of the way this is done in the psychedelic field at the moment, in the dreamscape, that the voices that raise this critique most loudly, they often tend to couch it in a very reductionist, materialist framework that is actually at the same time blinding out the shadow of the scientific regulatory process, and so also not able to fully capture what is going on. So that's why we need a deeper analysis. And all of these dynamics inside the psychedelic dreamscape and in other movements of a similar kind, they are often very clear outcomes of a refusal to do the shadow work and to instead project their own shadow onto other individuals and groups, then leading to boundary work, exclusion in the worst case, killing in the worst case. Yeah, that's where ethic comes in, this scapegoating mechanism, which is as old as humanity, probably. And my call is really that progressive healing movements need a reflexive analysis of also these scapegoating mechanisms, and we need to develop practices to move beyond them, and no psychedelic substance can do this for us. You're probably familiar with this old parable of the blind man and an elephant, the elephant in the room. What is the elephant? It's pointing us to the fact that each of us has a very valuable grasp on reality, but that in order to really understand what reality is really fully about, we need all our grasps and hands and perspectives. So it's about the limits of perception and the importance of complete context, which includes all human and non-human beings. And this brings me again to my personal story that's connected also to this place here, because as Eduardo mentioned also, I suffered quite some trauma here on these very Harvard grounds as a former fellow of the Harvard SDS program, where I was harassed, suffered abuse of power and exclusion. So these scapegoating mechanisms were completely done on me, led to my extreme worsening of mental health, professional negative consequences, and so on. But I thanks also to psychedelic therapy communities and other communities and healing contexts and support, I was able to emerge from that darkness into the light. The light was for me to start an activist movement in the field where I was harmed, science, technology, and society studies. And so I started the Me Too SDS, We Do SDS movement, and came out with my story 2 years ago. And I'm continuing writing this story in my publication and also artistic research work. Here I'm back in the day when I was just excluded from that program, but I already found new friends here at the Divinity School. So I'm so thankful and grateful for these alternative spaces here at Harvard. We made a picture with my friend here before the house of William James's house, the father of American psychology. Cool guy, cool concepts. I can't go into detail. This is another cool crowd, my friends and colleagues from the We Do SDS movement, just to show you, yes, there are many this is also the outcome of my healing movement with everything. And my healing movement is, I would say, turning from someone with complex PTSD, a patient, to an impatient scientific activist. And what I did, I used the method, I Me Too'd against the madness I experienced also in my research and through what I call survivor testimony therapy. There is actually this testimony therapy existing, but what I'm trying to do is to enlarge it and combine it with research and all my professional capacity to even show what true healing can be like as an academic and also with the psychedelic experiences in the back. So in the 60s, the question was, are you experienced? And you might remember this as a shorthand to signal to others that you know what you're talking about, that you're open-minded, you have the wisdom and insight from altered states. What I'm proposing is for this 21st century, another question, are you lived experienced? Which is for me a shorthand for our growing cultural awareness that lived experience of adversity and trauma, of injustice, is a valuable form of expertise. People with such direct first-hand experience often possess insights and resilience that those without this background cannot fully replicate and understand. And we need to resist institutional structures, cultural structures that victimize us and question our knowledge and expertise. And this is what I'm here and what I'm trying to stand for here today at the grounds at Harvard. And I want to finish with my dream, a dream I have, that one day we will fruitfully integrate the humanities and social sciences into the psychedelic revival and mix in modalities that allow us to fully acknowledge lived experiences of all kinds in academic knowledge production so that all beings may flourish equally. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Claudia. Brilliant, brave talk in indeed difficult times.